Welcome, IT professionals around the globe, to what I think this is our fourth in a series of stimulating, informative, and entertainment webinars. Isn't that right, Matt?
We try to make it entertaining. And that's why we're so happy to have you here. Today we're going to talk about implementing change management. And again,
you got to let me, Matt, you got to let me channel my inner David Bowie here.
All right.
We're going to talk about change management, change. How's that?
I almost wish I didn't.
Yeah, let's do it, Matt. Let's do it.
I'm going to agenda pretty straightforward. We're going to do a brief overview of PinkATLAS, and then talk a little bit about getting started once you're in Atlas, some of the templates that are available, and then we'll walk through some of the specific process templates that we would use in the order and sequence that we would do the design.
Fantastic. And then we'll do a high-level overview of what comes with Atlas and different iterations that are available, and then everybody will be emailing me with your credit cards. Yeah, so PinkATLAS is a service we provide, and it's available in 3 different iterations: silver, gold, and platinum. The more you spend, the more you get, obviously. But at its heart, it's this vast library of hundreds of downloadable process and program artifacts. It's really there to give you that huge kickstart that you might need when you're going about a transformation or a process implementation or a process improvement plan. And it's not just limited to the ITIL processes. It's got areas on governance, how to layer in lean concepts, organizational change management, which we talked about. There's just a huge area on program management as well. So this library of content is available in all 3 forms, and you download it and you keep it, and then you edit it if need be. It's yours. What else comes with Atlas is an Ask the Expert consulting portal. So this is unlimited usage from your organization, and you get to talk to the smart people here like Matt. Can be anything ITSM related. Could be documentation review, questions, phone calls, emails. So it's a great tool to have as part of that. There are training courses and consulting credits in these iterations as well. Some are self-paced training, some are virtual instructor-led, and then down towards the end here we see self-assessment tools, and that's included in the top of the line offering of PinkATLAS Platinum. That comes with the assessment tools PinkScan and PinkReady, and that's for doing process maturity assessments or looking at some critical success factors for how your organization will adapt to change. So that's called PinkReady. Those are also both sold as standalone tools, but in the Platinum, they're bundled in one shot. Matt, how are you doing there with your audio?
Very good. I think my audio should be better, so I've made some changes on my end. Hopefully that makes a big improvement for folks.
It sounds a lot better to me.
Excellent. Very good. Sorry for the rough start on my part then. So thanks for the intro, Brian, to PinkATLAS. I caught the tail end of that. So I noticed the question in terms of
intro.
Pardon me? I'm sure it was.
No. Go ahead.
So I'm noting the question Kelly has in terms of how PinkATLAS, the membership, compares to Gartner. It is different from what you would get from Gartner, so it's not so much research. This is more what we're doing in PinkATLAS is much more practical application in terms of tools and templates to help you organize and implement service management, organizational change, and we give you access to our experts as well in some of the features that we provide. So it's a little bit different in terms of what you would get from a Gartner membership.
And Matt, if I could add on to that, I did a demo the other day for a client, and they wanted to use this specifically to save days and days and days of process design time for a particular process. And that's really what the documentation is there to do. And we'll show everyone a couple of examples of this on how it's formatted and laid out, but it's there so that you're not reinventing the wheel.
Absolutely, that's really the purpose. And when we say that our consultants use this is when we engage directly with clients. These are the templates, the tools that we would use when we go on site with a client. So it's important to keep in mind that when you get started with any sort of service management initiative, you want to keep in mind the 7 guiding principles. Specifically, the start where you are. So understand that for the most part, most organizations have some type of process already defined in their organization. It's the level of maturity or the level of rigor that you've put in place that might need to be refined or improved. But it's always good to understand what you currently have in place. And the other piece that I want to highlight just in terms of the 7 guiding principles is progress iteratively. There's no reason that you have to do everything all at once and look for a big bang in terms of implementing a new process. If you understand where you are, then there's always some good opportunities to just refine that and identify, bite-sized pieces of improvements that you can take on and socialize. Again, when we talk about organizational change, on the people side, it's much easier to adapt to smaller incremental changes than it might be to focus on something much bigger. Of course, you want to focus on value. You always want to keep in mind the things that are important and what you're trying to achieve. What have you defined as a key outcome from the process that you're implementing? So these are always a good thing to keep in mind as you're going through any sort of a transformation, any sort of a process, either implementation brand new or any sort of iterative improvement that you might be making. The other thing that I want you to keep in mind is the continual improvement model. So it's important that this is a method of approach that you take when you're going through large or small improvements. Understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. Understand that current state. So where are you currently, and what is it that you're trying to improve? So what are the goals, objectives, outcomes that you expect to achieve as you move through this initiative? So just some guidance here in terms of always try to keep in mind these from an ITIL perspective, the frameworks that they've incorporated. There's some very good information that you ought to leverage. The 7 guiding principles and the continual improvement model are 2 key examples of that, where having a good understanding, sound understanding of how to apply these in practice is really, really key. The next thing before we jump in, yeah, Brian?
Sorry, Matt. I was just going to say I'm going to apply the continual improvement model when we're done here. So I'm hungry, and I need lunch, so I'm in the basement. I need to get to the kitchen. How do I get there? I go up the stairs. That's my action. See, it works. It's not just for ITIL.
I'll let you have that one. I'm not going to challenge you. So
carry on.
So the next thing that you need to really be focused on is making sure that you have the right people in the room as you go through the design work and the implementation. Some critical roles that I just wanted to highlight. If you don't have a process owner identified, then that really should be one of the first steps that you take. So having somebody that's overall accountable for the process that you're implementing and is going to steer and make decisions on direction is a critical piece to this work. You also want to make sure that there's fair representation across the different IT and development stacks that you might have in your organization, keeping in mind that you don't want to get the team too large. So when you're creating your design team, ideally you're keeping it around 8 to 10 people, and each of those people are representing a larger group. So when we go back to the 7 principles and we talk about implement iteratively with feedback, it's the responsibility of the members of this design team to socialize work that's being produced. So as you're progressing and making design decisions, it's very important to bring that back to a broader group of team members to get their feedback and bring that feedback into the design team. So identifying the key process stakeholders, those that are going to make decisions across or represent different silos that you have in the organization. If you've got somebody that's very familiar with service management or change management, having a process SME, somebody that understands what the process is intended to do, how it should be structured, and can be used to bounce ideas off is also an important step. That can be somebody internal or external, depending on how you're structured and your level of internal knowledge is on the particular process that you're implementing. And the last thing that I typically recommend as a key contributor to the design team is somebody that's very familiar with your service management tool, or that's going to be representing that team from an implementation standpoint if you haven't selected or you don't have a tool in place. So it's always good to have somebody that's taking responsibility to document tool requirements as you go through the design, or can help to level set the design team in terms of what's out of the box functionality. Another question here. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, you can have the same person. So somebody might be a process stakeholder and also the process SME. So there's no issue in terms of some of the overlap in terms of how it's structured. Every organization is going to be a little bit different based on the size and complexity of the environment. So some of these might be the same. You could also have a slightly larger team or a slightly smaller team based on how you're organized as well.
So I'll ask you a question, Matt. So my question is, if an organization knows they need a tool upgrade or a new tool set altogether, should they put off designing the process until they know what they're going to purchase? Or should they design their process regardless of not knowing what their tool might be able to take on?
So tools are the tool industry, the vendor community right now is much more mature than it was years ago. But in terms of ensuring that you're getting the right tool to support what you're trying to achieve from your process, it's always my recommendation that you do the initial design of the process before you start identifying a tool. Now, in some cases, you've already got a tool in place. There's maybe already decisions that have been made that we don't want to invest in a new tool. Fair enough, that's okay. But if you're in a position where it's a little bit greenfield and you have the opportunity to do the initial design of your processes before you start selecting your tool, then that to me is a better approach. because you're going to get a much clearer view of your tool requirements. And if you have the tool requirements well understood, when you start working with the different vendors, you can actually ask them to demo how their tool out of the box is going to support the process that you're putting in place. So that to me is a much cleaner approach to look at process, then you go into design.
No, it's good. And I get a lot of questions around tools and capabilities and whatnot. So one thing I'll just spout off here is for anybody who's interested, you can actually go to our website, pinkelephant.com, and there's I'll say it's like a, what do you call them, a bullet, a banner near the top called Pink Verify. And you can click on that and actually see all the tool sets that have been assessed by Pink Elephant tool assessors to see which processes they're ITIL compliant for. So to Matt's point, the community is becoming quite mature. So if you're interested in looking at that, you can, or if you're already thinking about a particular tool vendor, it's quite possible you'll find some good information on that part of our website. You can actually even see the criteria that we use to judge them against. So.
Yeah, good point. That's a very good reference for organizations that are looking to either acquire or validate some of their decisions around the tools as well. Good point, Brian. So the next few slides are just highlighting what happens when you go into PinkATLAS. So this is the landing page once you've signed in. And you can see across the left the different topic areas that are set up within PinkATLAS, and along the top just some structure. I do want to highlight the Ask the Expert feature because this is quite an important feature for subscribers of PinkATLAS. So if you click on Ask the Expert, it basically opens up a form that allows you to either add an attachment or just ask a question to one of our consultants to help you. Sometimes it's just a quick email exchange. In other cases, it might be easier to have a quick conversation, but it gives you access to our experts to help support the work that you're doing in your organization. So today we're going to be focusing on having a look at some of the documents in the IT Service Management Implementation Guidance area. And so as you expand out into that area, you can see that this is structured against each phase of the service lifecycle. So we're going to jump into service transition, and we're going to look specifically at the change management process. So in terms of how it's structured by process, each of these major headings is structured the same for each process within PinkATLAS. So first we have a set of project templates. This outlines an implementation plan, a kickoff deck, which is some initial training, just to level set people that are participating in the design so that they have a better understanding of what change management in this context is. We provide some description around project roles, so it goes into a little bit more detail around each of the stakeholders that I've identified earlier. There's a sample project charter and a full work breakdown structure. So in terms of the work breakdown structure, I'll just jump into that briefly. So this provides a full set of tasks and activities that ought to be included or considered within a full project implementation of change management, from initial planning through to the design, tool identification and selection, and then implementation of the process as well. So each of the tools or each of the processes that are documented within PinkATLAS provide this type of resource available to you.
And they're editable.
And they're all editable. Yes, they are.
When I remember once I said they were edible.
Edible.
Someone called me out on that.
I would not eat them.
They're editable.
Yeah. Even after you print them, I wouldn't eat them.
No, it's not good.
So beyond the project templates, we go into the process templates, and this is where we're going to focus some of the time today in terms of just walking through briefly a couple of these documents. The overview, high-level design, detailed design, and then management information. And we do provide a Visio document that contains all of the flowcharts that are included within the Word documents. And the last section within the document library per process is supporting documentation. So you can see from a change perspective, we've got samples on the change advisory board, change categorization, a scoring matrix, a risk calculator. So there's a number of different supporting documents that you might need to leverage or support your implementation as you go forward. So what I wanted to go into first is the change overview document. So the overview document is where we would typically start to support the initial design of the process. And from a table of contents perspective, essentially what we're trying to address here is agreeing the process purpose and objectives for your organization, for your environment. The other piece that's important in this document is defining the scope of where you're going to implement the process. And determining scope is quite a critical piece, especially, again, if you're progressing iteratively, you may not want to apply this new process across the entire environment. You might choose a specific functional unit, specific services, and so that's really what we're trying to define there. We provide some standard benefits that you can customize. There's a glossary of terms related to change management, and then there's some roles and responsibilities that we've defined as well for the process. So as you go through, essentially, as Brian indicated, these documents are fully editable. You can modify them. It's a Word document that you have. We highlight instructions and areas that we think that you're going to want to change in blue. So the first thing that we would walk through then after we've done the initial kickoff, what we would do with the design team is really help to define what is the purpose, what is the objective that we have for this process. So again, we're providing you in the template what ITIL says is the purpose and objectives, but again, it's always recommended that you adapt this to your environment. So how is it that we're going to structure and manage this in your environment, and what's important to you in terms of this process? So you need to take some time.
I'm back.
Very good, Brian. I can hear you.
I want to make a request for change to my cell phone provider.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll catch up.
Okay. So following the purpose and objectives, once that's been defined and agreed, and again, what you're doing is you're making decisions in the design sessions, taking those decisions and socializing them back with a broader team. The next piece that you want to define is what's the scope of the implementation for this process. So are we applying this across the entire environment? Are we segmenting it by service, by business unit? Defining the scope, again, is going to define the complexity of your project as well as some parameters that you have on the implementation for this. So again, you need to make some decisions around how you're going to approach scope. Again, some generic benefits that you would need to review and modify based on the goals and objectives that you've defined. Indicated sort of the glossary of terms that are here, and then we go into roles and responsibilities. So defining the process owner, what the profile is, so what type of individual would fill this type of role. What are the key responsibilities that the process owner would have within the organization? and what level of authority should that individual have as well. Go into the change manager, structured in the same way, change analyst, and then the change advisory board member. So upon completion of this,
Matt, I just wanted to point out, Matt, you maybe touched on this. So very briefly, obviously, when you download these documents, you can take our Pink Elephant logo off them and put yours on, and you can edit whatever you want. But we've highlighted the areas that we're pretty sure you're going to want to change, and that's in the blue text. I mean, that's pretty straightforward stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these documents are intended to become your own. You don't need to keep any of the Pink Elephant references that are in the documents. You modify them and turn them into your own document. If you have your own templates, then again you can pull content from these documents into the template that you're working with. So once you've agreed the high-level process, the purpose, the goals, the scope, then we would go into validation of the high-level process. So that's the second document that we'll overview here. And what you would want to focus on here is the high-level process for change management, making sure that you agree with the key activity descriptions. And then we've got a RACI model for the high level. And there's some supplementary information here that's useful for you to have from a governance perspective in terms of how COBIT is aligned and the integration with other processes and functions that you're looking at. So this is, by default, the key high-level activities for change management, again, as it's defined by ITIL. So we've taken the descriptions and all of the content from the publications, and we've applied how we would structure that from a process perspective. So as you go through and validate this, you want to make sure that the activities that we've defined fit within your the scope and goals, objectives that you have within your project. Again, the Visio files for this diagram are fully available and can be edited. And then we go into providing a description of each of those activities. So if you're looking for just a quick and dirty implementation, there's really not much limiting you from taking what we've provided and using that as a first step for implementation. Again, I think it's worthwhile that you make some customizations of the process specific to your environment, but there's sufficient information here for you to really take a good stab at implementation based on the documentation that's being provided. So again, against those...
So there's probably, and when we get down to like the policies area here, there's probably more than you're actually going to be needing. So you might actually be cutting as opposed to copying. And that's why I always would tell people that actually purchase PinkATLAS is to, keep the original document somewhere safe and work from that. If your subscription ever ends and you choose not to renew, then at least you'll always have that original document to reference again. There's quite a bit, as Matt will show you.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite often, I mean, when you look at some of the process documents, as Brian indicates, there may be more information than you need, and that's okay. So if you want to cut or edit to simplify, then we always recommend to try and do that. If you keep it simple and apply the overall goals and objectives based on what you're trying to implement, then you're going to be much better off. The other thing with these documents, we've created this document. Basically, we've created 4 core documents for design. And we've done it that way because of the sequence of how you would structure your implementation, your design program. But you can combine these into a single document. So there's no reason to keep them separated once you've actually done your design, so that you've got a single process document that you can socialize and publish into your document library, so that people are being pointed in the right direction. So you can certainly do that as well. So once you've agreed the high-level design, then you would go into the detailed design document. And basically what this document is doing is it's exploding out each of those high-level process activities. So for each of those activities, we've now gone a little bit deeper, and we've defined what are the procedures that would be supporting that high-level activity. So for record, review, and change request, again, we provide an overall Visio document to support that procedure, RACI matrix, and go into specific descriptions. So here's the detailed flow for record and review change request. Again, it documents the expected inputs that we would have to manage this. There's a call out almost immediately to determine, is this an emergency change? Follow your emergency change procedure. Creating the change record, examine the record to make sure that it's complete. Are we going to accept this into the process? Is it a standard change? And then we want to provide some information.
Matt, for an organization to get the most value out of the detailed design document, should they be at a certain level of maturity already, or could they essentially head in this direction without having an established process?
No, so you can start using these templates without any process at all. The goal of this is to get a quick start for your process design. So this is providing you with essentially everything that you need. And again, you could apply these templates without making any changes. So you could start using them right out of the gates, socialize them internally, and start basing your implementation on these documents. But it's good to make sure that you're going through a bit of a review to tailor them to your level of awareness and what you're trying to achieve. So I wouldn't generally recommend to just implement what's here without reviewing and validating internally that you're on the right track. Again, we want to make sure that from a buy-in perspective that people are buying into what we're doing with the process change to support that overall organizational change perspective. And yeah, and then when we go into, so this is the example RACI model for this first procedure. And then we go into the way that the procedure is described. So again, we provide a purpose and a policy statement for each of the procedures. We define what the expected input would be, and then this is where there would be a level of effort from the design team in terms of documenting specific procedural instructions, or if there's a work instruction because there's a tool activity to support this, there would be some updates required here. We define what the expected output would be from the activity, and then also provide a link back to controls or governance that you might put in place specific to this particular procedure. There's also an area for you to capture if there's a specific metric that you're expecting to be able to capture from a tool perspective. So for this one, for example, a metric might be that you want to be able to report on, or the number of emergency changes that are submitted. So that might be a metric that you identify or document here. So we go through this for each step within the process. So you can see there's a level of detail that's provided across all of these activities.
And this is deeper than the ITIL books, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah. So once you get into the detailed design document, this is not contained in the books. So none of this level of detail is provided by ITIL. This is all of our sort of thought leadership in terms of bringing this to light in terms of what this might look like within a standard environment. So in the last document that I want to highlight, and appreciate we have gone over sort of the 30-minute, so thanks for hanging in there. But this is the last document that I want to highlight, and then I'm going to come back to some of the questions that have been coming in as well. So the last document that we have is management information. So this is structuring sort of a series of reports, and then it follows some recognized critical success factors, key performance indicators that you might want to put in place to measure the effectiveness of your process. So again, this is now going into some detail, and again, there would be some refinement here based on the objectives that you've defined. What specific critical success factors and KPIs would you want to put in place? So I'm just going to jump through to, so here's some example critical success factors that have been defined. So defining what the critical success factor is, as well as sort of a brief description in terms of what we're trying to capture. And then if we proceed through this document, how it ties back to process goals and objectives. And then we get into more specific key performance indicators. So looking at a specific key performance indicator and how it relates back to the overall critical success factors that we've put in place. So again, a lot of the legwork in terms of common key performance indicators, common critical success factors that might be important to you based on the out-of-the-box objectives of the process have been predefined for you. So let me jump back into here. And I know there's been some questions on this, so Brian, I'll let you just go through this, and then I'm going to start looking through some of the questions that are over here.
Yeah, so I mean, I've kind of touched on this already. I've mentioned the silver, gold, platinum level, so everything that Matt has shown you comes in each one. Silver at the base, you get all the content, the Ask the Expert, and 5 self-paced training courses. That can be anything in our portfolio. Doesn't have to be an ITIL course. It can be an organizational change management course, BRM, DevOps, Lean, whatever we offer in that format. And when we get up to the gold and the platinum, as I mentioned, the more you spend, the more you get. So, you know, in gold, instead of 5 self-paced training courses, you get 10. And you also get 5 virtual instructor-led courses, so live training through WebEx. You also get a day of consulting, and you can split that up into 8 hours, or you can have a full day dedicated, and it can really be for anything ITSM related. It's obviously remote, especially during these times. And then in Platinum, for the consulting, you get 2 days or 16 hours. And then when it comes to training, you get 15 self-paced courses and 10 virtual instructor training courses. Now, I'm going to throw out a caveat, small print, on the training courses. You do have to buy the exams separate. So a lot of our courses are certification-based. There's a few that are more workshop-based. The workshop ones, obviously, no exams with those. As far as the training courses that come with the exams. If you want that, you just got to buy separately. With Platinum, I mentioned those assessment tools, PinkScan, PinkReady. Those are great tools for do-it-yourself assessments, process maturity, and cultural readiness. And, obviously you could do those, and then you could leverage some of the consulting hours to have one of our experts help analyze that for you and point you in the right direction, kind of really give you a jump start on making improvements. So a lot of different ways you can get creative with using the consulting hours. How are the questions looking, Matt?
Yeah, good. So I'm just going to go back to one of the earlier ones that I saw. So I had a question about handling changes, any recommendation for handling changes in a DevOps, with a DevOps environment. I think the key with incorporating DevOps from a change management perspective is to have them involved right from the beginning, from the design approach, so that you have a good understanding of how DevOps is being implemented and what the value is that's being delivered, and how, from a governance perspective. So if we think of change management as a way of providing some governance over the environments, how do we want that to be involved in those DevOps environments right from the get-go, so that there's good alignment and good inputs and outputs between the DevOps practice and what change management is doing. ITIL 4 does address this a little bit cleaner. So if we look at what's happening in ITIL 4, change management sort of fades away a little bit, and from a process perspective, and it's change enablement, which is the practice. And there's a little bit more guidance from that perspective in terms of how we would support DevOps and Agile. So I'd point you towards sort of an ITIL 4 change enablement perspective in dealing with DevOps. But it's just critical that they're a part of your design team, and you're really building in that structure to support that culture from the initial design of the process. So some questions around where we are in terms of ITIL 4 updates. So currently the process guides that we have in Atlas are aligned with ITIL version 3. Many of them are still relevant, especially when you get into the detailed processes that are defined in ITIL 4 from a practice perspective. So from an incident perspective, the incident practice sort of calls out three sort of key process areas. So normal incident, or just sort of logging, resolving normal incidents, security incidents, and major incidents. So within our incident management templates, we've defined already how to address those types of incidents. So there's still detail there that's relevant, but we're currently in the development phase of building out the ITIL 4 practices to a similar level of detail that we have for version 3. So if I go back here, so there is a section in Atlas already, PinkATLAS already for ITIL 4. So there's some initial guidance that we've incorporated, but the goal is to continue to build out and evolve towards ITIL 4.
I think it's fair to point out that we've had to react to how Axelos has rolled out ITIL 4 as well. So even though the foundation book of ITIL 4 came out just over a year ago, it's the more advanced content that has that information that is needed, and that's been trickling in. Well, it's taken some time.
Yeah, so we now have almost a full set of practices submitted by Axelos. And so that's what we needed to start building in our own sort of thought leadership in terms of how do we want to evolve that into the next iteration of, not iteration, but how do we want to enhance PinkATLAS with those documents. So we're currently working on that, and we have a staged plan for the rest of this year to be rolling out new content. aligned with ITIL 4. So question on the process flows. So yes, all of the process flows. So there is a section in PinkATLAS with all of the process flows in Visio. They also work in Lucidchart and other documentation or other tools that allow you to edit Visio files. Yeah, knowledge management is included in PinkATLAS. And all of the documents are available within the Silver subscription. Yeah. And the only other question is this webinar being recorded? And it absolutely is. And everybody that registered for the event will be able to, will get the link to this recording as well.
Well, that's a nice segue into what I wanted to say because it's recorded and everybody's had such a good time and learned so much. If you're interested in seeing us live, we're going to be doing a similar presentation at Pink 21 next February. Yes, that's right. I know that everybody's going to be signing up for our conference now, but it'll be a great time. We'll do something different at Pink 21. So, check out the website. Check out Pink 21 as well. A lot of the program is already available to take a boo at and get familiar with. We got some pretty good promos going on as well.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll mention is that if you're interested in PinkATLAS or want to learn more, we're always happy to set up a demo with you and your team to do a deeper dive and explore some of the other areas of PinkATLAS. So you can reach out to Brian or myself if you're interested in having a more detailed demo with your team. Anyway, I really appreciate you spending part of your afternoon with us today. It's been a pleasure talking with you, Brian. Nice talking to you as well.
Always a pleasure, and a good day to everyone. Happy change management implementations.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.